And thank you all for coming out today to hear our presentation. My name is Ryan McNellis. This is my colleague Ben Fauser, and we are representing the ASPCA. To start today off, we'd like to introduce you to our families. She's shy sometimes.
Well, Lucy doesn't want to say hi today, unfortunately.
Well, dogs, just like Lucy, you would have seen, are a common problem in America. Today, we have about 70 million dogs and cats that go homeless, and they're trying to find a home and be loved. Now, how many of you have been to Arrowhead Stadium? If you have, a lot of you did. If you have, you know how big it is, and if not, it can hold roughly 80,000 people. Now, this 70 million dogs and cats could fill Arrowhead Stadium 933 times. That is way too many, and we need to be the generation that puts an end to this problem.
So we have a really big problem in America with animal homelessness, as you just heard. It's 70 million homeless animals every year. So the ASPCA, if we opened a center in Lawrence, which is why we're asking for a $25,000 grant, would be able to help ease the local homeless animal problem that we have. So today we'll be discussing how an ASPCA shelter will help to decrease shelter overcrowding in the Humane Society shelter that already exists. We will discuss programs that the ASPCA runs nationwide that help combat animal cruelty and animal homelessness. And we will discuss how the ASPCA helps people struggling with the costs of owning animals as well as helping animals find good homes. Having more than one shelter in the area will help decrease, as I said, shelter overcrowding. So every year in America, there are 2.7 million animals euthanized due to various reasons, from health to just shelter overcrowding and not being able to cope with the number of animals that are coming in. So out of the 3,500 animals that the Humane Society took in 2012, 14% of them were euthanized, which is very, very sad. Out of the 933 times that we could fill Arrowhead Stadium, 33 of those times, all of the animals will be dead. That's a lot. So out of the 3,500 animals that the Humane Society took in, 1,750 of those were dogs. So the cost of having a dog in a shelter, just one dog for an entire year, is $500. Now if you multiply $500 times 1,750, that is $875,000 annually just going towards dogs. That doesn't account for costs of cats. That doesn't account for the costs of overhead of running a shelter, from gas bill, water bill, heating, electricity, cleaning. So having another shelter in the area, having the ASPCA in the area, will decrease the number of animals going into the Humane Society, which will mean that they will have more money to spend on their facilities. When I went to the Humane Society for the first time in Lawrence, my sophomore year of college, there was a cat that was hanging out outside my apartment. Wouldn't leave, just kind of chilling. And so I was like, well, he was super nice, constantly came up to me, would sit in my lap. I was like, okay, gotta go find this dude a home. So I take him to the Humane Society, or tried to. I drove past it because I couldn't see it. It's tucked away, it's not easily visible, it doesn't look very big, it doesn't look like an animal shelter. So having another shelter in the area will give people more places to take their animals, as well as having a shelter that's more visible because the ASPCA logo is big, bright, and orange, and it's pretty hard to miss.
The ASPCA is a nationally organized, or is a national organization that we've all come to know based on the television programs we've seen on Animal Planet, plus all the sad commercials that just touch our heart when we see all the dogs and cats that look sad and want a home. Now, one way we go about helping all these dogs out is by implementing new programs. And one I'd like to talk about today is one that we'd like to implement with the Lawrence Police Department. It kind of resembles one that we did in New York City. In New York City, we did a joint operation with the police department to help find dogs that were dealing with animal cruelty and also dealing with homelessness. According to the president and CEO of the ASPCA, Matthew Berthecker, we're already well on pace to saving 4 to 5 times as many animals this year than the ASPCA has done during any year in recent history, and that was in regards to New York City. So if we could bring this program to Lawrence, who knows how many animals we could save. Another thing that we would like to implement is, in 2015, it was reported that the ASPCA Center in that location in Los Angeles was able to give a $1 million grant to the Animal Control Center and other shelters just to help out with just different kind of costs they were dealing with And I'm not saying that we could give Lawrence $1 million, but say in 3 to 4 years when we have some revenue coming in and we're able to like establish our name in the community, we could give a couple $1,000s, whoever we need, to work with the Humane Society and to make like a joint partnership instead of make it more of a competitive area.
So the ASPCA's main goal, obviously, is to find a good, safe, happy home for every animal that walks through our door. The ASPCA is extremely good about finding safe homes for the animals that come into our centers because we do extensive background checks before we allow dogs to go home with our families. So we make sure that animals, that like the homes that our animals are going to, that the owners don't have any prior history of animal abuse, don't have any prior history of domestic violence and spousal abuse and things like that, as well as drug and alcohol use, which are factors that could contribute to not having a safe home for an animal, because I wouldn't feel comfortable sending an animal home with somebody that has priors of drug and alcohol abuse. Hard economic times affect everybody, which is another thing that the ASPCA takes into account before we send animals home with families. We want to make sure that our animals, when we send them home, will have a home in which that they are properly cared for, have food, water, shelter, and have everything that they need from medications to bathing and anything their animals need to be happy. And of course, we're upon some pretty hard economic times recently with the recession happening in 2008, which that leads to more animals going into shelters with families not being able to care for them, which increases the strain upon the Humane Society being the only shelter in the area with only one shelter that animals are able to go to. Now, living in a college town, college students are obviously much more strapped for cash than almost anybody else in the country. It's our first time living on our own. We have to pay bills, pay for food, pay for school, pay for books, pay for everything. And so we may be able to afford a dog or a cat at one point, but then say a year later, we can't afford to feed it, we can't afford to bathe it, we don't have time to take it on walks because we're in class all day. And it's really, really hard to give up that animal. It's become part of your family and been in your life for a year. But know that giving your animal to the Humane Society or to the ASPCA is a much better option than having that dog go hungry, and we will do our best to find a place for that animal to call home.
And here are a couple costs that Ben is talking about that we go through every day. Many of these families and college students ask themselves the same question that Sherry Johannes, owner of a no-kill shelter in Georgia, receives multiple times. One lady was crying to me and said, "I've either got to feed my kid or I've got to feed my dog. What would you do?" Now, we deal with these situations all the time, and we embrace the challenge of trying to find these families help and to find those animals help to make sure that they're both well off and both getting the love that they need. One big way we go about doing this is by offering a retail store. We can offer products like food, toys, medication cheaper than what the national chains like Petco and PetSmart offer. This way, families can afford these and not have to give their dogs away or to shelters, which also leads to overcrowding again. In review today, we discussed how we will decrease the overcrowding in the local shelter for the Humane Society, how we will implement new programs to try and help out the problem that is still ongoing today, and how to help out struggling families and college students deal with the financial struggles of taking care of a dog. We hope we were able to convince you to give $25,000 to our foundation to start up our own new shelter in Lawrence, Kansas.
So, next time you're in Arrowhead Stadium, or next time you're just like watching a Chiefs football game on TV, rooting them on, hopefully going to the playoffs and lose the Super Bowl, that would be awesome. Remember, all those people that you see there, imagine if every single one of those people dressed in red was a homeless animal. Just like Lucy. Thank you very much.